The Goodyear Eagle F1 Asymmetric has always been Goodyear's top of the tier ultra high performance tyre and a firm fan favourite, and recently at the end of last year the Goodyear Eagle F1 Asymmetric 5 was released, which in my own testing and others testing has been doing really well as a performance tyre. In April this year, Goodyear surprised the industry by releasing their new Eagle F1 SuperSport range, which comprises of the SuperSport, the SuperSport R and the SuperSport RS. And this moves Goodyear's product offering in line where the performance tyre market's going. That is, you have the Asymmetric 5 as the more comfort-oriented ultra-high performance tyre. So maybe the tyre for the bigger family cars with a lot of power that still want an element of comfort. You now have the new SuperSport, which builds on that, maybe takes away a bit of the comfort, but in theory adds back some grip and some handling properties. So better steering, better traction, better feel, everything you want when you're stepping away from maybe the larger family comfort car and more onto the ultra high performance like the 911s or something more extreme. You've now also got the SuperSport R, which is their track focused tyre, but it still has usable qualities on the road. So it's a tyre that you can use on track, and you should probably use on track, but you're not gonna die on the way to the track day if it rains, that kind of tyre. And then you've got the SuperSport RS, which sadly isn't on test today because it's only in big Porsche sizes at the moment, but that's their ultimate extreme tyre, the one that you want if you're gonna just go out and do dry handling at the expense of wet handling and comfort and noise and everything like that. So what are the differences between these tyres now, the Asymmetric 5, the SuperSport and the SuperSport R? Well, in looks, not much. Both the Asymmetric 5 and the SuperSport look very similar. They're both asymmetric with ribs. They both feel roughly the same, and I know everyone on this channel loves a sidewall squeeze, but when you actually handle the tyres, they feel very similar in profile. Maybe the SuperSport a little bit stiffer on the bead and the sidewall, and obviously the R, the track day tyre, you can see they've removed some of the void, so there's more material in contact with the road, and they've bridged this outer shoulder block, which means better steering stiffness and response, and it is a bit stiffer on the sidewall. But all these looks, that's a very small part in what you actually want from a tyre. What you want is the tyre to deliver grip and performance. So to find out, I'm back in Miraval in the south of France at Goodyear's bonkers test facility. I'm going to be looking at everything these tyres can offer, which is dry and wet handling, both subjectively and times. We're going to be looking at comfort levels, we're going to be looking at aquaplaning, and of course we're going to be looking at braking. But I'm going to be honest, this video is going to focus on the dry and wet handling, times and subjective, because I feel like that's the most important thing for these tyres. But we're going to go through everything, and hopefully it should give us a good idea of what the differences are between these three tyres. Let's get on with dry testing. So tyre one of the day on dry handling, which at Miraval, as you've probably seen before on this channel, is an amazing dry handling circuit. Tyre one is the Asymmetric 5, and after I've just given it the big, oh it's so soft and squishy, it's the comfort oriented tyre on the intro, you know what, it's really good as a sports tyre. Got absolutely no complaints as an initial thing. I mean, the Focus RS is well known for being a very pointy on the nose car anyway, but this tyre seems to offer like excellent turning, good levels of braking. If anything, I'd say in the high speed stuff, like the sidewall stabilities maybe a little bit, it just gets a little bit flexible and a little bit wobbly and a little bit vague at the very high speed stuff, which is turn one here. As noted in the Asymmetric 5 versus Premium Contact 6 review, it just had that little bit of float, but I guess that's the takeaway from the added levels of comfort we found during NVH testing, which I'll probably get onto in a bit. But as an initial experience during this dry handling circuit on this Focus RS, I'm really happy with this Asymmetric 5. No complaints. It'll be interesting to see how the next couple of tyres really sort of move the game on. So now I'm going to switch away, set a benchmark time. It's a long lap here, so I'm not going to talk you around all the times because that would be boring. But I'm going to switch away, set a benchmark time, and then move across to the SuperSport. It's more sporty, brother.
The Asymmetric 5 sets a solid benchmark of 1 minute 33.6. Now onto the SuperSport.
So the next tyre on test is the Goodyear Eagle F1 SuperSport. Remember, this is still their road tyre, so is it vastly different from its little brother, the Asymmetric 5? Well, considering they're both road tyres, I'm going to say yes. The floatiness and the slight vagueness in steering and that little bit of understeer the Asymmetric 5 gave and the high speed stuff is gone. What the SuperSport has given me is a much quicker, dartier front end and better steering feedback and precision, and where it really seems to pick up ability on track is the whole braking and turning. Bearing in mind the Asymmetric 5 is an award-winning tyre and it's beaten rival tyres in this category already at time of filming, the SuperSport just builds on its high performance credentials and just makes it nicely dartier and a little bit more sporty feeling. So what Goodyear have done to the Asymmetric 5 is just, I guess, built on a base and tweaked it for a more performance oriented experience. How's that going to translate to in lap time? Well, I guess there's one way to find out. Let's go and do some times, but bearing in mind they're both road tyres, so if it's anything more than a second, I'm going to be mega impressed.
Well, call me impressed. The SuperSport was a huge 1.4 seconds faster than the Asymmetric 5. Let's see how the R does.
And finally, we have the SuperSport R, which is glorious good fun. Oh my God. So the way the SuperSport built on the Asymmetric 5, the SuperSport R builds on the SuperSport, and it allows you to just have fun in this car. Oh, it's so great. So you've got a slightly sharper front end again. You've got slightly better ability to brake and turn. The balance is roughly neutral. So of the three, the Asymmetric 5 had a bit of an understeery balance, but again, still very neutral. The SuperSport was probably a little bit more oversteery, but again, quite nicely balanced. And then this, I think it's probably the most neutral of the three, but it allows you to play with the balance more because you've just got that slight extra amount of grip at the front. So the SuperSport was a second and a half-ish quicker than the Asymmetric 5, which is huge and super impressive. Let's see where this builds on, because I don't think the lateral grip is massively higher, but the ability to brake and turn and the confidence it gives you, I mean, it's just what you want from a track tyre. It's almost telepathic with where the car goes and the way you're thinking. So mega impressed with this tyre just on subjective feel. It's so much fun because you can just do silly stuff like this. It's great. So highly recommended it. Let's see how much faster it is.
The SuperSport R improved by a further half second and felt more stable on track. The dry braking results confirmed the R's advantage, with the SuperSport sitting nicely between the R and the Asymmetric 5.
Okay, wet handling, and is it gonna give us any more surprises than the, quite frankly, unsurprising dry handling results? You know what, that's a lie. I think the SuperSport being that much ahead of the Asymmetric was the surprise, because the Asymmetric's a great sports tyre in the dry, and the SuperSport just trashed it. Anyway, onto the wet, starting again with the Asymmetric 5, and I feel like I'm boring myself because I'm just gonna say it's really nice again. You've got that little bit of understeer. Maybe you could have a little bit more steering precision on the front, maybe. I'm going to go off, set a benchmark time with the Asymmetric 5, then switch over to the SuperSport and see what the differences are.
As in the dry, the Asymmetric set a solid benchmark at 1 minute 10.3.
Okay, the Asymmetric 5 has set its benchmark, the wet weather king. The Asymmetric range has always been known for good wet weather performance. Is the SuperSport any better? Well, on subjective handling, like in the dry, you've got a little bit more steering precision, shock, a little bit more turning. It just feels a little bit more positive in the corners. However, where you're having a negative from the Asymmetric 5, you're aquaplaning in another point or two on the circuit. So it's struggling a tiny bit more with the water depth, but overall grip levels feel very similar. So did exactly that on the Asymmetric 5 when I was talking, and I've done exactly that on the SuperSport. So that's where the aquaplaning happens, and that's where both tyres are struggling, but the SuperSport maybe just struggles in a couple more bits and maybe a little bit more oversteer on the balance, but nothing drastic between the two. Let's see if the times reflect this.
The SuperSport continued its advantage over the Asymmetric 5, shaving 1.3 seconds from its time.
Lastly, we have the SuperSport R, which is the track day tyre, and this tyre isn't really designed to be excellent in the wet. It's designed to be, let's say, adequate in the wet. So if you end up on a track day in the wet, you can still have some fun, and if you end up driving to a track in the wet, you're not going to die. And does the SuperSport R deliver on that? I'm going to say yes, it does. For a track day tyre, obviously the grip's a little bit less than the other two, and obviously with the meatier tread pattern and the less initial tread depth, I'm aquaplaning quite a lot more. But from a subjective predictability, balance, enjoyment point of view, I'm actually really enjoying this tyre. It allows you to just maybe take a few more liberties, maybe because the grip levels are less, you're sliding a little bit earlier and a little bit more progressively, but I really enjoy using this tyre. It's not the quickest. I'm definitely knowing it's not the quickest. It's definitely not going to match the SuperSport or even the asymmetric time. And I've got a funny feeling it's going to be quite a few seconds slower. But as a track day tyre during wet handling, I'm impressed. Fair play. So let's look at its time, and then let's look at the straight aquaplaning results, which should verify everything I've just been saying about aquaplaning. If they don't, I'm going to look like an idiot. And obviously wet braking, which is very important.
Unsurprisingly, the more track-focused R was 10.9 seconds slower than the SuperSport, but still very controllable for a track day tyre. During wet braking, the Asymmetric 5 took back the advantage, narrowly beating the SuperSport. Fortunately, the aquaplaning testing confirmed my thoughts from wet testing, with the Asymmetric 5 having the strongest aquaplaning resistance. Now, on to the conclusion.
Okay, the day's testing is over, and has there been any surprises? Well, not really, sadly. In the dry, the Asymmetric 5 was the slowest, but still a very capable, good pointy tyre on its focus. It still felt like a good sports tyre, so I guess that was a bit of a surprise because it's meant to be the comfort bias one. The SuperSport was about a second and a half quicker, which is impressive for this kind of tyre, and just added that kind of extra steering feel and precision as you were driving, which was nice. And then the SuperSport R, well, that was faster again, and it made most of its time up in braking. It was really strong on braking. It was like a wonderful tyre. It just turned the nose in on brakes better than these two, as you would get from this really stiff outer shoulder block. In the wet, the SuperSport again was the outstanding tyre. That's not to take away from the Asymmetric 5 or the SuperSport R, because I mean, this isn't meant to be brilliant in the wet, but the SuperSport was a chunk quicker than the Asymmetric 5, and the Asymmetric 5 is a very, very good wet handling tyre, so you can see what Goodyear have done with the SuperSport to really bring that wet performance. Now, the SuperSport R was a touch slower, and by touch I mean a fair few seconds, but it's a track day tyre. Like, it struggled with aquaplaning. On this wet handling circuit, we've got a kind of constant 0.8 mil, which is a splashy puddle, but at times there is deeper water, and that's where this probably lost most of its time. Perhaps if there was a surprise, it was in the comfort and noise testing, and that is because the three tyres to the ear subjectively all sounded approximately the same. None of them were overly rumbly or noisy or drony or anything like that, which you can find with track day tyres. And the Asymmetric 5, while is the more comfort biased tyre, was quiet and wonderful, but so was the SuperSport. So fair play. In comfort testing, that's where the differences in construction become a little bit more apparent. So the comfort testing is how much of like an impact or a pothole or road imperfections get transmitted through into the car interior or through the suspension system. And that's where you could feel the difference between the Asymmetric 5 and the SuperSport, because the Asymmetric 5 just has this way of wonderfully rounding off crashes and imperfections in a way that few tyres do, whereas the SuperSport did deliver a bit more of that crash into the car's cabin. But it was by no means like super uncomfortable or felt like a track day tyre. It just was slightly less comfortable than the Asymmetric 5, which is, I guess, the negative part of that extra steering feel and performance you get in dry and wet handling. The SuperSport R, for a track day tyre, wasn't too far off the SuperSport, so fair play to the R for doing that, and fair play for this tyre as a whole, as a tyre like maybe the Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2, you can use on a car. I'm not going to say year round, because I imagine when it's cold and wet, this isn't a tyre that's going to offer the best performance you can have. But across the summer for a track day car, you can leave it on your car and go to the track on it and drive to the track and have a great track day. Drive it back, no problem. So fair play to the R, fair play to the Asymmetric 5 for doing exactly what it's meant to do. And for me, this is probably on balance the all-round standout tyre. The SuperSport is just, it seems almost faultless in every category apart from maybe comfort. So fair play to Goodyear. Thank you to Goodyear for allowing me to test these tyres at their facility and for supporting this test. Thank you for Goodyear for making these tyres and segmenting up what used to be just ultra high performance into these maybe 3 new categories, because that gives us tyre geeks and us performance driver enthusiasts the ability to select a tyre based on exactly what we want for the car. We get to make less compromises based on this development. So this can only be good for us, and let's hope the market continues to move in this direction, because it's just fantastic. And also, it keeps me in work, because all these new tyres means people have got questions about what fits where on the scheme of tyres, and that keeps me working. So please subscribe. No, in theory, thanks again for watching. There's going to be plenty more videos like this in the future, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. It's not just going to be tyres though. We are moving into the M3 build, so we're going to be testing suspensions, brakes, weight reduction, everything like that. So lots of things that affects cars' performance, and maybe some car reviews in the future soon. I don't know, we'll see what happens. But Thanks again for watching. Any questions, please ask below. Like it if you've enjoyed the video, and as always, safe motoring.